You know, whenever I've talked about Batman Returns being one of my favorite movies, people just tend to look at me like I'm nuts. No one understands why I love it so much, why I like it more than The Dark Knight, and in fact my own father has attributed me loving this movie to being dropped on my head as a kid. But the truth is, my love for this film is not hard to describe, nor hard to defend. Batman Returns is not one of my favorite films just because it's a Batman film. It's one of my favorite films because of its creativity and because of the fact that it's one of the most visually stunning spectacles ever put on screen. And to this day, Batman Returns remains an underrated and undervalued gem. With this sequel, Tim Burton was given complete creative control, under the condition that the Penguin and Catwoman would be the villains. However, before this decision was made, Tim Burton didn't have much interest in making another Batman movie, because he wanted to move on to projects that would allow his creativity to shine. Well, the best decision Burton ever made in his career was taking Warner Brothers up on their offer to let him do what he wanted, because Tim Burton's creativity has never shined brighter than in this film. Tim Burton took what he established in the first film and brought it to the next level. For a lack of better terms, he went all out. In Batman Returns, Bruce Wayne now only lives for being the Batman, and soon finds himself face to face with the deformed Penguin and the psychotic Catwoman. But rather than just having Batman square off against a fat midget and an expert jewel thief, like in the comics, Tim Burton goes a step further, adding more depth and backstory to these two villains. I could not be happier about this in regards to the Penguin, because, I'll be honest, I never liked that villain in the comics. Out of all the well-known villains in the Batman universe, the Penguin, Oswald Cobblepot, is by far the lamest.
Hi, I'm short and fat and got a big nose and I got an umbrella, fear me. Yes, excellent, yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, it goes right back to Superman's biggest foe, being a bald guy in a business suit. I'm sorry, I'm just not buying it. In Batman Returns, Burton made the Penguin more fun and interesting than he's ever been. But what's more, he turns the Penguin into a villain that we actually feel sympathy for. He's a character you can actually care about and sympathize with, as opposed to just a cliché bad guy that we want to see defeated from the get-go. Kind of like how Loki was in Thor and the Avengers. The opening of the film shows us the early days of Oswald Cobblepot. He's born deformed and locked in a little black cage by his rich parents. On Christmas Eve, the parents throw him over a bridge into a lake that leads into the sewer system. In my opinion, this was the strongest opening of any Batman film. Hardly a word of dialogue is spoken, and yet so much emotion has been shown on screen. We know that the baby will grow up bad. We know that he's the main villain of the film, but right now, we don't care. All we see now is a newborn baby who is tossed away like garbage because he was born different. The only thing we care about in this opening is this child. And he's the villain. This opening was brilliant. The Penguin in himself is one big tragedy. His plan once he emerges back above the sewers of Gotham is to find his parents, find a way to forgive them, and then put his devious plan into motion. He wants to kidnap the firstborn sons of Gotham and throw them into the toxic sludge in the sewers.
Tragic irony or poetic justice? You tell me.
But when he's convinced by Max Schreck to run for mayor, he begins to feel accepted and seems to abandon his plans. He likes being a public figure and being in the spotlight for once in his life.
I can really get into this meta stuff. It's not about power. It's about reaching out to people, touching people, groping people. My name's not Penguin. It's Oswald Cobblepot.
He releases his Red Triangle gang to wreak havoc on the city to make it look like the current mayor is unfit. But Batman is on his case, and Penguin will be damned if he lets Batman screw everything up for him. But unfortunately, him going after Batman and framing him for murder ultimately becomes his downfall.
You gotta admit, I played this stinking city like a harp from hell! You gotta admit, I played this stinking city like a harp from hell!
And when Gotham turns on the Penguin once again, he reverts right back to being the cold, bitter monster that he once was, and puts his original plan back into motion.
My name is not Oswald! It's Penguin! I am not a human being! I am an animal! Cold-blooded! Crank the AC!
I know I'm talking about the character a lot, but it's only because he's such a great character. Here we have a man who grew up in a sewer because he was deformed, re-emerged, gained power, and became an idol through manipulation, and just when he had everything he ever wanted, it was all taken away. Granted, he was a madman, but in the scenes where he's trying to be an upstanding citizen, you get the sense that this is what he wants to be. He wants to be a public figure. He wants to be loved. And make no mistake, if he has to manipulate the people of Gotham and get rid of Batman just to do it, he will do just that. Unfortunately, it just did not work out in his favor, and he ends up returning with a bloody vengeance.
The time has come to punish all God's children. First, second, third, and fourth born. Why be biased? Male and female. Hell, the sexes are equal with their erogenous souls blown sky high. Forward march! The liberation of Gotham has begun!
Then of course we have Catwoman, Selina Kyle, who starts out as a frightened young secretary and becomes a full-blown psychopath when she's thrown out of a window and left for dead by Max Schreck. People often complain about this character not being the jewel thief she was in the comics. On top of that, in this film, after she's thrown out the window, she is seemingly resurrected by cats, and Batman fans have made the statement that the supernatural has nothing to do with Batman. Oh, well, if that's the case, then I hope Ra's al Ghul kept the receipt for that Lazarus pit of eternal fucking life. Once she wakes up, destroys her apartment, and becomes Catwoman, we are given one badass villain. I for one applaud Tim Burton for doing something fresh and creative with this character, as opposed to her just being a jewel thief who toys with Batman's emotions.
I don't know about you, Miss Kitty, but I feel so much yummier.
Which, true to form, she also does in this film. She is constantly toying with Batman, developing a love-hate relationship with him. One moment she's kissing him, the next minute she's helping the Penguin frame him for murder. What can you do?
There you are.
Now, another thing that throws people off about this character is the notion that she has 9 lives. I personally don't think she did. I think that she was under that impression, but I don't think she had 9 lives. At the end, when she's shot a bunch of times, she is clearly in pain and bleeding out from the bullet holes in her body, so I'm just gonna stick to my guns and say that she is clearly as mortal as the other characters in the film. If you want a faithful representation of this character, go watch The Dark Knight Rises. Anne Hathaway's portrayal of the Catwoman from Batman Year One was absolutely phenomenal. But if you want a version of this character that is new, fun, creative, and every bit as enjoyable, you can't go wrong with some crazy Michelle Pfeiffer.
Meow.
The final villain is Max Schreck, a character that people insist takes away from the Penguin. Yeah, how? How is this villain more interesting than the Penguin? Please tell me, because I honestly cannot comprehend that criticism at all. I mean, he is a fun character. How can he not be? He's played by Christopher Walken and named after the actor who played Nosferatu.
Frankly, I cringe, Mr. Mayor.
But I personally never found him to be the primary villain, nor did I ever see him steal the Penguin's thunder. Max Schreck always seemed to be, at least to me anyway, sort of the devil on the Penguin's shoulder, guiding and manipulating his actions as well as helping him rise to power. I mean, these characters do work really well together, but I always found Penguin to be more interesting. This isn't Iron Man 2, where Whiplash took a backseat to a corporate douchebag and did next to nothing the entire movie. Penguin is still the main villain in this film. Schreck is just along for the ride as far as I'm concerned. Now I've broken down all the villains, you've all been patient, let's get to Batman. In this film, Batman is kind of a loose cannon. Okay, no kind of. He is a loose cannon. And God help you if you piss him off. It's evident from his introduction scene in the film that being Batman is his life now. Bruce Wayne is just sitting down in the dark, waiting for the bat signal to go off. Nothing else is happening for him aside from being a businessman by day. Vicky Vale has left him, he no longer hosts big parties in his mansion, he just wants to be Batman. It's all he lives for. But he seems to have lost his humanity as the Batman, now resorting to lighting people on fire and even blowing another guy up. Yeah, Batman kills in this film, which a lot of people have just called blasphemy on. However, this never bothered me for two reasons. One, the original Batman carried a fucking gun and never had anything against bloodshed until later on. So let's just toss all the accusations of Batman never being a killer out the window right now. Secondly, this issue is addressed in the film. It's not blurted out or handed to you, though. The issue is handled subtly. This is where Selina Kyle's relationship with Bruce really helps the story. As I said before, Bruce Wayne seems to have lost his humanity, and when he meets Selina Kyle, his humanity appears to resurface. He's still tortured, but we start to see more of the fun Bruce Wayne that we saw in the first film. Their dialogue together is a highlight of the film. They can relate to each other because they both wear masks and because they both have their fair share of secrets. Before Bruce Wayne realizes that she is Catwoman, he stops her from putting a bullet in Max Schreck, which many people write off as him being a hypocrite. I have never seen it that way. I just see it as Bruce Wayne trying to stop someone else from becoming what he's become. He doesn't want Selina to go down that road. But here's where this really picks up.
Mistletoe can be deadly if you eat it.
But a kiss can be even deadlier if you mean it. A kiss under the mistletoe. You know, mistletoe can be deadly if you eat it.
A kiss can be even deadlier if you mean it.
Oh my God. Does this mean we have to start fighting?
At this moment, one thing is clear. Not just to us, but to Bruce Wayne. Selina Kyle may be his answer to the humanity he was losing. But her alter ego is also the indication of what he, as Batman, may one day become. It takes this reckless vigilante for him to get a clue and start questioning what he does. At the sight of Selina drawing the gun, he didn't want her to end up like him. But when he figures out that she is Catwoman, he realizes that she already is. Only much, much worse. And he doesn't want to end up like her. This all leads to him trying to save Selina from herself at the end, even being so bold as to take off the mask for her, a clear indication that his humanity is now back.
Selina, please.
Bruce, I would love to live with you in your castle. Forever, just like in a fairy tale. I just couldn't live with myself, so don't pretend this is a happy ending.
However, the problem is that Selina cannot be saved. At this point, she's beyond that, and content with it. No matter how much she loves Bruce and wants to be with him, in her mind, there is just simply no going back for her. This whole arc in the story is wonderfully handled because it's handled with subtlety as opposed to everything being handed to us on a silver platter. What also makes this version of Batman so memorable is Michael Keaton, who, I'm sorry, fucking owns Bale as Batman.
Because he is Batman, you moron.
I'm sorry, but I'll take the Batman who is naturally intimidating over the one who tries to be intimidating any day.
You're not just saving a life. You're saving your... Shut up. You're going to jail.
You'll be in a padded cell forever.
Enough said. Keaton is the darker Batman because even as Bruce Wayne, he keeps all of his emotions inside. And when you look at him, you could never in a million years guess that he is Batman. Don't believe me? Well, just ask all the people who petitioned against Keaton playing Batman in the first place. Guess they couldn't suspect it either, huh? But without a doubt, the most interesting thing about this Batman is how director Tim Burton had him relate to these villains in the film. He took the time to explore the effect that these villains would have on him, and it goes way beyond just having the villain being the killer of his parents or some insane anarchist that he'd have to kill to stop. These villains, in one way or another, represent a part of Bruce Wayne himself. Catwoman represents the part of Bruce that is a vigilante. The Penguin is the part of him that believes he's a freak, and even Max Schreck represents the businessman that Bruce must pretend to be on a daily basis. Given the proper circumstances, Bruce could have ended up like any of these villains, and in fact, almost ended up like Catwoman. In a way, this is practically an inner war. Bruce Wayne is fighting against 3 different versions of himself. But it's not just the characters or story that Burton gets creative with. The set designs in this film are brilliant, and Gotham is perfectly realized. Say what you will about Tim Burton, but if there's one thing the man does know, it's atmosphere. He always manages to immerse you into the worlds he helps create, because, again, he's a creative visionary. Even in his shitty films like Planet of the Apes or Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, he managed to create and shoot some impressive looking sets. It's a common theory that style isn't important in a movie. Well, while I do agree that the style of a film should never overshadow the substance, I do believe that style is important, because when you're watching a movie, first and foremost, you are watching the movie. In any movie, and especially in a comic book movie such as this one, where you have a fictional setting, the director should be able to immerse you into the fictional setting that he's created. It helps the tone, it helps the mood, and it creates a certain atmosphere. Tim Burton knew how to do this, and the story and characters he portrayed are every bit as enjoyable as the setting of Gotham City. I love how dark it looks, how grim it looks, and I even love the noir style with people dressing like it's the 20s and driving old cars. From the zoo, to Gotham Square, to the Batcave, it's just an overall blast to watch. What also helps this film's tone is Danny Elfman's beautiful score. You can keep Hans Zimmer, the hell with Elliot Goldenthal. Danny Elfman's Batman score is just classic. It was so good, in fact, that Elfman himself reworked the score for Batman the Animated Series. But he also seems to rework another score of his in this film. Now, keeping in mind that this film takes place at Christmas time, tell me if this sounds familiar at all. Yeah, that's just awesome. And it shows us that Elfman was being just as creative with his music as Burton was with his direction. Now it's time for me to reveal my favorite scene and my least favorite scene. My favorite scene is the Penguin's funeral. If only because it's one of the saddest scenes in any Batman movie, and because I'm feeling bad for the villain that died. I mean, it wasn't really him dying, per se, that got to me. It's the fact that after he dies, 6 Emperor Penguins come out crying and push his body into the water. I mean, what the fuck? The Penguins who looked after him as a baby, the ones that he took care of as an adult, are now giving him a funeral. How can something be so sweet and yet so fucking sad at the same time? I don't know. I don't want to know. All I know is I cried the first time I saw this. It was just a perfectly executed send-off to this villain. My least favorite scene, believe it or not, is actually the final scene of the movie. You know, where the bat signal shows up in the sky and Catwoman just appears out of fucking nowhere. I really didn't like this. I think you would have had a more powerful ending if Catwoman's fate had been left open to interpretation, as opposed to her just popping her head out of nowhere. In fact, this was added in at the last minute. It was not in the script, and it's not even Michelle Pfeiffer in the suit in the shot. The only reason it was put in at all was because writer Daniel Waters and producer Denise DeNavi were both interested in doing a spin-off with Catwoman at the time. Unfortunately, the studios kept putting it off. Daniel Waters' countless scripts got rejected, and it ended up in development hell for years until it eventually became, yeah, let's just do ourselves a favor and forget that happened. It doesn't exist. Personally, I think it was just an unnecessary scene, and I would have much preferred being left with the mystery of her being alive or dead. Overall, Batman Returns has to be one of the most underrated films ever made. The characters, the story, the actors, the setting, the soundtrack, it all just rocks. It's really a testament to what a great filmmaker Tim Burton is. Rather than just grounding his story completely in reality, he created his own vision and made a Batman movie that was truly one of a kind and special. I often hear this thing that this movie was Burton at his Burtoniest, if that makes any sense. That's what people tell me. But you know what I say to that? Good. It remains, in my opinion, Tim Burton's best film, as well as the most creative film I have ever seen in my life.
Do not bring that trash up in here, motherfucker. This is my house.
Get your sticking paws off me, you damn dirty ape!